Good morning. Welcome to the third webinar in the Get Started with Engagement series. Today we are talking about building web forms. So we'll start with our forward-looking statement. So please make your purchasing decisions based on currently available products or services, not things I say that might be about products in development or in the future. All right, I am Jessie Rimpf. I am a success content specialist. I think you all have heard about me before on the other webinars in this series, and I am happy to be joined by Natalie Vainberg, who will be back talking with us about Pardot at the end of the webinar and answering your questions. Good morning, Natalie.
Hi, Jessie. Yeah, as Jessie mentioned, you might have seen me here before on the marketing automation webinar, but I'm also a success content specialist and was a customer prior to being at Salesforce. So excited to be here with you today.
Great, thank you. And I've been a Salesforce admin for 8 or 9 years and a nonprofit sector off and on for 15 years, something like that. And one of the first things I had to do was make some I started out managing people's websites and databases. So I know about building web forms, but I don't know how to build, I'm not a web developer. I had to figure all this stuff out. So I am here to help you with it today. All right, some logistics for our webinar. So please post your questions in the GoToWebinar panel, and Natalie is here for answering your questions. And I'm going to send you the slides in the recording for the entire series later this week. So we've got marketing automation, engagement plans and levels, and building web forms. So those slides and recordings will get to you within a couple of days. And then we highly recommend in the Power of Us Hub that you join the App Advice and Consumer Reports group. And that's where you can find a lot more information about how to compare apps for forms, what different form building tools there are, and ask your questions. And I've got a trail mix for you today that has all sorts of links to different tools I'll be talking about. So we'll share that link with you. It is here, but we'll get to it at the end. So don't worry about getting all the tools that I reference. We'll get them to you. Okay, so this is our last webinar in our engagement series. So we've talked about marketing automation, went through engagement plans and levels, and now we're ready to build web forms, capture interest from your constituents or potential constituents. So the goal of this webinar is to expose you to different options for building sign-up forms for your website that send data directly into Salesforce. So I'll show you in detail, from start to finish, how to use the web to lead form. It comes from Salesforce. You paste HTML into your website, and that'll put data right into Salesforce, and we'll talk through how to set up the auto response email in detail. And we will look at WordPress integration, a little less depth there, but we'll talk through that. And we'll look at some of the extensive features that third-party apps like Form Assembly or Form Titan and what they can offer you. And we'll look at a bunch of examples from nonprofits. Natalie's going to end the session by telling us more about Pardot forms. So on our first webinar in the series, Marketing Automation, we learned about Pardot, not as much about their forms. So we'll talk about that at the end today. All right, online forms. So creating sign-up lists, event registrations, applications, and even more. So what we can do with Salesforce itself, we can create simple web to lead form, and we'll be doing that today. That's going to generate records in the leads object, which is a standard Salesforce object. We'll talk about that in just a sec. You can also use web to case forms, which we're not focusing on today, but a web to case would create a case record in Salesforce. They're generally used for support tickets, something where someone has an issue, they need help, they need a personalized response, they need someone to follow up right away. And you could use Salesforce to create an externally facing website using a tool called site.com. So if your org has been around a little bit longer, you'll have access to Salesforce Classic, our Classic interface, and from there you can use site.com. So that's a place where you can expose forms to or Salesforce pages externally. So it's pretty complicated to set up, but it is an option that comes with Salesforce. No extra cost if you have a bit of an older org that still comes with it. And internal forms. These are something you might want to do. You can build internal forms with Flow. So let's say you want something simpler for your staff than the page layout. If your page layout has gotten out of control, you could build internal forms with Flow. So that would be when people are using them in Salesforce. You can also expose your flows externally on site.com, but again, that has some complications. Oops. Okay, so to get more functionality, we'd recommend getting an app or a plugin. So you can make more complex forms, and by more complex, I really mean you can get other objects, anything else besides the lead or the case. That's the most basic thing you could do with these other apps. You can do things like prevent duplicate records in your signups. You can create multiple records or objects at a time. So we can create a contact, an account, a campaign member record, a task to alert a staff member. And we're going to talk more about what you can do with these additional tools today. All right, Natalie's going to launch a poll for you. So what kind of form would you like to build first? If I want to see what stage you're at, what you're looking for with your form building tools here. Are you looking for a simple web sign-up form, multi-page with conditional formatting, the ability to upload files, something more complex? Are you wanting to make a donation form or have that support ticket that requires a personal response? Okay, great. So most folks are wanting more complex forms. Some are at the simple form, and then others are looking for donation forms with payment options. So we're going to be looking primarily today at simple web forms and talking more. Let's see, the first two options: simple forms and complicated forms. And then donation forms we'll just touch on a tiny bit. And then support tickets, that would be web to case for the most simple option, or adding a more complex form that also creates a case, or using a plugin or an app. Okay, thanks, Natalie. You could close that. All right, thank you for your participation. Very helpful. All right, so let's look at web to lead forms. So this is your simplest, lowest cost option for getting started building forms in Salesforce. All right. So this is a website I built using a free website tool called Wix. Totally free to build this website. And we have our demo org is the Ugly Dog Adoption Agency, helping I forgot our tagline. Uniquely adorable animals find their forever homes. So this is our made up demo organization, and Wix actually has this beautiful template available for animal shelters. So this was free, and here I've popped in my web to lead form. So this is what it looks like when you paste in this HTML you get from Salesforce, and this is going to create a lead record in Salesforce. So this is the most basic thing you get here. Here's the Squarespace version of it. So I've paid for a Squarespace website, and I've pasted in my web to lead form. So this is the same form. Squarespace CSS did override the font settings and made it look a little bit nicer. And what this does when I fill it out here, zoom in for you. I'll just use my own email address. And I am interested in fostering dogs. That's just a checkbox from the lead field. So I'm going to submit this. And I've told it to take me to the website afterward for the Ugly Dog competition, which happens every year. So, but you can tell it to take you to any page that you want as a follow-up. And let's see. So what are leads? These are web to lead forms, but what exactly is the lead record? Well, it's a standard Salesforce object that stores prospects or potential donors. We did talk about leads in our marketing automation webinar. So these are folks who have expressed an interest in us, but we aren't really ready to convert them to a contact yet. So someone who signed up for our email list, they came from an informational event, or they've signed an online petition, which something we could build with a web form. So remember that Salesforce was built for corporate sales processes. So that's where this comes from. The idea of using a lead is to store prospects, and then later you convert them to a contact when you're more ready to sell something to them. That's the sales model for this. So let's look at what the lead object looks like in Salesforce. Okay, let's go to my leads. Okay, I've just created this lead here from my form. It's loading. Okay, great. So I just have the name. I have this checkbox was checked, foster orientation interest. So the only fields I included in my form were name, foster orientation interest, and email. So it was a very simple form. Okay. So when we build a web form, we have a few steps here using our web to lead. We generate web to lead form HTML. So we're going to get this whole bunch of code. It's really easy. We select the fields we want, we get this code, then we paste it into our website. We don't need to know anything about HTML. And then we're going to create an email template to send out as our response. Here's a example of a web to lead form out in the wild. So this is from the Montana Digital Academy, and this is their web to lead form on their website that they've done some styling with to make it look really nice. We'll talk more about them in a bit. Okay, so we're going to generate this HTML. First, we select which fields we want, and we tell it which website we want it to go to after the form is submitted, and then click Generate the HTML. Oops. Grab my notes again. Sorry about that. All right. So once you saw that on the Wix website, the font doesn't look amazing once we paste in this HTML. You can get a little bit of help with your HTML or your CSS. I have used this tool before, and this will be in your trail mix, W3 Schools. So back in the day, you can just paste in some styling into HTML, and now you are supposed to be using CSS, but you can also find some really basic HTML stuff to do there, like paragraph breaks and other things. So this could be a helpful resource just to make it look a little bit nicer. And this tool here, you can try out your code, you can paste it in and start doing some modifications and see your results on the same page. So those are just two simple tools for, if you're wanting to try out HTML a little bit and test out in a safe space. So when we're pasting in our HTML, our web to lead form, we have different results using that on different websites. So for example, on WordPress, we can't, as far as I've seen, we can't just paste in the HTML and have it work. You need to upgrade to a business plan and use an additional plugin with WordPress. Or you'd have a web designer or someone else do some styling to get the form to actually work. With Wix, that was a no-cost website, and there were no additional plugins needed. I just paste in that HTML. With Squarespace, I needed to purchase a plan to have Squarespace at all, and then I was able to paste in my web to lead form. So Natalie's going to launch a poll for us now. I'm curious what your website is built on. If you have one yet, maybe you're just getting started. And if it's a custom or other website, let us know in the question answer widget or the chat, what your website is built on. Overwhelmingly WordPress, custom or other. Okay, so I am curious to hear what that is. Great.
Looks like lots of folks are using Drupal.
Drupal, okay, awesome.
The #1 response.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that's really good to know. Okay, thank you guys. All right, so let's look at how to build this web to lead form with Squarespace and Wix. Okay, from Salesforce, I'm going to go to my setup here, my gear, and I'm going to look for web to lead. And I'm going to create my web to lead form. So here I am going to tell this which fields I want from my lead object. So these are all the available fields, including custom fields. So I'm going to choose my foster orientation interest field. This is where I tell it where I want it to go afterwards. So I would just say, we would have a custom thank you page. And I'm not going to include the CAPTCHA because I don't know if it'll work on these different websites, but that's a great security measure. Test it out, see if it works. Then I just hit generate, and I get all this HTML to paste right into my form. So let's see how that will work here. All right, Wix. Here's my Wix editing page. So I put in this HTML